Welcome to Problem Solve, the podcast where me and a special co-host solve all your problems really easily, probably.
Problems? Are you kidding me? I don't have any problems. Okay, I might have a few, but I can work on them with you. Come on.
Hello, Caitlin V. How are you doing?
I am great. So thrilled to be here.
Yeah, I'm really excited for you to be here too. Before we get into all the sex questions, can you introduce yourself to everybody?
Yes, I am a sex and relationship coach. I'm the host of the show Good Sex on Max and Discovery Plus. And for the last 9 years, I have been focusing on men's sexual challenges, issues, and goals, mostly through my YouTube channel.
Nice. Why did you decide to focus on men's sexual problems?
A combination of things. Number one, I am a pansexual, hetero, romantic woman. And so I had a lot of experience being intimate with men. And I also have my fair share of negative sexual experiences with men. And I continue to love men. And as a researcher, I was working primarily, so I have a master's degree in public health and a doctorate, a couple years of my doctorate, not a doctorate. And I was researching women like me who have sex with both women and men. But when I got on YouTube, one of the first videos that took off was about squirting. And it turns out that men, specifically men with performance anxiety, are really interested in squirting because it sort of is seen as a way of making up for maybe what they perceive they lack in terms of being able to provide pleasure for a partner. And so I went from like 0 to 1,000 in terms of people coming to see me for coaching who are dealing with premature ejaculation, sometimes erectile dysfunction, and sometimes delayed ejaculation. And so I started working with all of these different men. And because I was coming out of the research world, and because I thought that the proposed sort of the recommended treatments for each of those, especially premature ejaculation inside of sex therapy, were not up to date. They weren't fresh. I didn't think that they were like really holistic in the way that they approached those challenges. I started running like little studies with each of my clients and comparing and contrasting the results between them, and came up with my own methodology, and now have taken that and applied that to all the different challenges that men have, or the most common challenges that they have. And it's been a real pleasure. I think that what I do supports women too, because I like to see myself as turning straight men into the kind of lovers and partners that I want for all women to have.
Yeah, I love that. And maybe we'll just sort of organically get to some of the the problem solving skills that you've developed when it comes to erectile dysfunction or coming too early and all that good stuff.
Yeah, we're gonna fix all the problems today.
Okay, yeah. In the 1 hour, we're definitely going to fix everybody. Yeah, I'm looking forward to that. This will probably be, since we're going to fix everybody, this will be like the last podcast I do. There's no more fixing.
No. We're only going to fix the straight guys today.
Oh,
there'll be,
okay. But
we're only going to solve
the
the straight guy
right?
problems.
We've already determined that. Like
that's the sticky thing about what I do for a living is that like a lot of sex specific information and advice, especially in the field of coaching, is by women for women. And I think it's one of the things that we have sort of burdened women with, in addition to developing all the emotional and soft skills to care for the relationship, that we're like, you also should be figuring out for yourself why you don't enjoy sex, why you don't want sex, why sex hurts, why he's not doing whatever it is that you want him to be doing in bed, like many of the questions that we're going to get to today. So in my opinion, this is an area that we actually should be turning back over to men and saying, hey, like, number one, a lot of men's problems are based on the things that they repress related to their sexuality. So when we go to men, we are actually going to the root of a lot of the challenges that both men and women face. And I think that men who have a great relationship to their sexuality are less likely to cause sexual harm and are more likely to be, happy, pleasured, holistic, grounded human beings.
Yes, great point. That makes a lot of sense. I love it. So we're going to play a couple questions. Some callers called in, 2 of them, and we're going to go through those questions together. And then we're going to go through some other questions that people emailed. And also just to, as you may all notice or know just from listening to the podcast, 85% of my followers and listeners are women. And then like 98% of the people that actually send in questions are women. So these, I think all of these questions, except for maybe one, are coming from women that are having sex with men. So we can keep that in mind as we answer all these questions.
Yeah. Go.
Okay, Andrea, go ahead and play us the first question.
Hi, Jeff. Fellow therapist here. I hear so much female sentiment about being self-conscious of their vulvas, particularly in the experience of straight men going down on them. Whether they're worried about smell, how it looks, what their labia looks like, etc. My question is, what do straight males have to say about the experience that can help to either, neutralize or just address these anxieties for their female sexual partners? Because oral is so much fun, and I want more females to receive it from their straight male partners.
Yeah, is this something that you hear about out there when you're talking to men, doing your research?
I think what I hear most from men is that they absolutely love and are obsessed with their partner's vulva. And their partner is, exactly as this caller is referring to, self-conscious or insecure about something related to their vulva. And so she keeps him away from it or out of it, or doesn't allow him to perform the oral sex that like he really wants to give to her. And I hear this from men all the time, like, what can I say or what can I do in order that she might feel more comfortable with my face in between her legs?
Mm-hmm.
And
yeah.
So speaking from like a perspective of what women, my advice for women who are dealing with this is trust him when he says whatever he says that is encouraging and loving and adoring about your body and your vulva. Like when he says, you taste good, trust him on that. I think so many of us, like myself included, are like, how is that possible? I don't think I taste that good, or like, whatever. We have been conditioned that our vulvas are dirty and smelly and ugly and all of this nonsense. And we have to do our job there is to like decondition ourselves from all the things that we have been told and actually trust the person in front of us who is like, please let me get in there with my tongue and make you feel good.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Yeah, I support that. There's also, just speaking from like a little bit of personal experience, there's, especially when I was younger, maybe in my 20s and stuff, if I was sensing that maybe the woman I was with felt insecure or felt like about their vulva at all, then I would feel that way. And I'm just like, okay, cool. I'm like not even gonna mess around then. If you're feeling insecure and you don't want me to go down there, or you don't want me to talk about it, or you don't want me to tell you how much I love it or how attracted I am to it or whatever, then like I'm just going to take it off the table as a topic of conversation to try to kind of like respect how you're feeling about it. And then we're just both avoiding the issue. And whatever narrative that's going on in your head is probably reinforced by my avoidance of it. And I'm feeling like helpless and powerless. And I'm just trying to respect whatever you got going on in your head. But that's not really addressing anything. And then it feels like, it has felt like, even if I start to tell them about like how attracted I am to it or how hot I think their vulva looks, it feels like I'm like going up against, and I am going up against just sort of like years of programming that maybe as a woman you should feel ashamed, or it doesn't look perfect, or it doesn't look like the vulvas that we see in porn or something like that, right? So, and I am kind of butting up against that. And I would love it if we could just sort of bring all of these topics to the table and talk about it, and that you can, like you're saying, allow me to influence you about how hot I think you look, and then start to internalize that. But there's a lot of like years of messaging that I'm butting up against, right?
Right. And you don't feel like you're violating someone's consent because they're like, I don't want to talk about it. I don't want to address it. It's like, okay, I don't want to force you to address it. But I also wish that there was some kind of opening between us where we could at least have this conversation be on the table in a way that has you feel safe. And that you feel resourced to have it. And I think to get really specific, so let's talk about the advice that I have for women with male partners and men with female partners.
Got it.
For women, there's an incredible and very I'm going to say simple, not easy exercise, if you are feeling insecure about your vulva, of taking a hand mirror and just spending some time looking at your body, looking at your vulva, looking at your clitoris, like becoming really familiar with your anatomy. And, you know, you may even, depending on your level of sex education, like you may want to consult an anatomical diagram and then map your own vulva and go, okay, here's this on me, and here's where my urethra is, and here's where my fourchette is, and here's my internal and external labia. Just really from almost like an objective perspective, just as an observer. And then over time, maybe walk yourself through different states of arousal. So watch yourself arouse your body, massage your body, get out a toy, get out your favorite toy, turn yourself on, watch the ways that your vulva shifts as you experience arousal and orgasm, just as a way of getting familiar with your body, not as a way of opening up places to criticize yourself, right? The way that you look in the mirror and what you focus on when the stories that you tell yourself as you are looking in the mirror can be empowering or disempowering. So like in this exercise, we're just looking for things to appreciate and love about our vulvas. One of the other downsides about having the internal genitals that we do is that we don't see each other's, we don't see our own. We have to actually go quite out of our way. We have to get the mirror out, or we have to have some close friends that want to do a vulva showing party in order to get some sort of a sense of how very normal we are and how much variety there is between us, and that all vulvas are different and all of them are unique and beautiful in their own way. And I really mean that. One of my exes said at one point to me that my vulva looked anorexic. He was like, it just looks so thin and limp and unhealthy. And I was like, wow, that's not something I can do anything about. And then years later, I was at like a pussy gazing workshop at Burning Man called Enter the Yoniverse, and the facilitator went around with a microphone. Each person spread their legs, and she described their vulva in artistic terms. So she was like, yours looks like a flower, and yours is like a rose with delicate petals. And for my friend, she was like, you have an Art Deco vulva, very angular. And it was really nice to hear language about the vulva as if she was looking at a painting, because it changed my perspective a lot on what there was to love about the aesthetics of my vulva and what there was to love about the aesthetics of other people's vulvas. And I think segueing that into the advice that I have for male partners, and you can share this with your male partner, compliments and reflections that are work really well, particularly in this area, but really work in sex broadly, are things that you experience with your five senses. So how something looks and smells and feels and tastes. Compliments that are specific to our specific memories from the past, the moment that's happening right now, desires or fantasies that we have for the future. So you felt so good yesterday, your pussy feels like this right now. It feels like it's gripping me. It feels like it's textured, it's extra textured, whatever it is. And then describing the desires that you have that involve her vulva and involve your experience and your love and your adoration of that. And then if you take that to a far extreme, pussy worshiping, genital worshiping is an option too, that people, especially from religious backgrounds, can find very kinky, which can be very hot. But it is an opportunity to just kick back and receive. It's very clear who the giver and who the receiver is for an exercise like that. And so you just get to kick back and focus on receiving instead of thinking about what am I going to do next? And how soon are we going to have intercourse, or all of the other thoughts that can get in the way of us actually receiving.
Yeah. Wow. You have so many tips. And these are so good. Yeah. And really important and incredibly empowering. And I also know from my own point of view is that, I've seen a bunch of different vulvas, and whenever I'm attracted to somebody and want to fuck them and it's really hot and passionate and there's chemistry, and then I see their vulva, it looks fucking hot. If I want to be with them, I'm just objectifying, sexualizing their vulva. It looks so good to me, because I want to be with them. And I've seen the full spectrum of vulvas. And so also knowing that your partner likes you, maybe loves you, wants to fuck you, is really attracted to you, is feeling the chemistry, they are more than likely really attracted to your vulva. So that's something to keep in mind as well.
I have never myself been with a lover who had a vulva and thought in any way to be critical of her vulva. Every single one, I've like, wow, the shape, the color, the texture, like how cool, how amazing, that's just on my end too. And if you're really concerned, like you really have some reason to feel like you're concerned about smell or taste or something, like go to a healthcare provider and rule out bacterial vaginosis, rule out trichomoniasis, like check your pH. Like, there are objective measures that will let you know, hey, like your vulva is healthy. It doesn't have any of the standard issue, like odor causing things. This is just like your body smells like this. Your body tastes like this. It is a body, we can rule out those things and then like give ourselves permission to really relax and that like, this is just my body. This is how it looks, tastes, and smells.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. Andrea, let's go to the next question.
Hi, Jeff. I've been a follower for quite a while, and I've been wondering why is it so difficult for men to follow their girlfriend's instruction about what they need in bed? Like, why do they just do what they think it's right instead of teaming up with their partners and, like, having fun and building trust? They just like, oh no, she likes this, but they don't really actually know. And I don't know, it's so confusing. I was wondering, why is it that?
Yeah, really good question. I think that, like, I would imagine that maybe a lot of people that are having sex with straight men have thought about this before.
Yeah.
Because it seems like maybe, I don't know, I would imagine that, like on the other side, if you're a woman, you might be more often conditioned to be like, pay attention to what the dude likes and try to figure it out, map their pleasure, and then try to pleasure them, right? While a guy maybe hasn't been conditioned like that. Maybe it's happening a little bit more these days, hopefully. But there's the whole, I don't know, we can probably get into like, it's the patriarchy or whatever. Like there's like, we men might kind of enter a situation where like, I'm the man, which means I know what I'm going to fucking do. Don't worry, babe. I know how to pleasure a woman's body, sort of thing. So it could be like a fragile masculine ego that's getting in the way. But there's probably a ton of things that's causing this issue. What do you think?
You're so right. And my initial reaction to this was like, this also is not all men. This is like the man that you are sleeping with. And it is also true of a lot of men. Like both of those things are true. Absolutely. Men are conditioned and told that they need to know what they're doing at all times. They need to understand arousal and pleasure, but they also need to know, what the next move is in the relationship or the evening. And they're told that they need to be dominant and that if you ask for help or you ask for directions in the specific directions, like sexual directions, that there's something wrong with you. You're not performing the way that a man is supposed to perform. So absolutely that is conditioned into men. I also think that when I heard this, a couple other things that came to my mind were having really firm boundaries and being really good at communicating what it is that we really want, like specific communication. Because what happens often in a sexual relationship is we say things that make sense to us and we are describing what we think should be like universally understood using the words that we are describing it, but it's not specific enough to have him actually understand what it is that you're saying. So, for example, the word dominant. Like, I want you to be more dominant in bed. I want you to be rough in bed. I want you to be gentle in bed. I want you to be sensual in bed. I have a definition of what all of those things mean, but I guarantee they don't line up perfectly with your definition or my lover's definition or her definition. Language that is so explicitly specific. Like, I like when you lick the upper left quadrant of my clitoris with the tip of your tongue with a 3 out of a 10 scale of intensity at this tempo. That's very specific. It's very difficult to get to. And part of that is because when we're having good sex, which I don't really think that the caller is, unfortunately, is that the parts of our brain that are really involved in describing things, like our human brain that is using language, begins to turn off if we're really in pleasure. Because sex is, sex and orgasm and pleasure are really back up in the reptilian brain. They're old, right? I like to say, like, anything that you have in common with a reptile, like, Go to that version of the brain, like sleeping, eating, fucking, like, the human brain's not particularly that skilled in the moment of being able to use language and critical thinking to describe what it is that you really need. So in terms of practical advice, I would say that something that develops both touch skills and communication skills is great. There's a wonderful resource available through Betty Martin that is called the 3-Minute Game. And really it's based on the Wheel of Consent, which is divides touch into 4 different quadrants based on who's doing the touching and who the touching is for. So I can give touch to my partner. That's probably, maybe if he's asking it's for him, it's probably going to be like a shoulder massage or something. But if I'm touching him for my pleasure, I'm going to run my fingers through his hair because that's the thing that I want to do, whether or not he likes it as much, right? So the reason that a game like this is so good at supporting couples through challenges like this is because it divides and allows us to like untangle all of the things that are happening inside of a sexual encounter and just address one at a time. Another thing is bossy massage, where and this is kind of what happens in the 3-minute game when someone's touching you for your benefit, is that you're telling them exactly what it is that you want. The parameters are set up such that this is just about you. It's not about their ego. It's not about them getting it right. It's about the two of you exploring. So you might start with him massaging your neck, and then you're like, actually, you know what? I want you to massage my glutes. Oh, you know what? I want you to give firm squeezes on the top of my thighs. Oh, you know what? Now I want you to like run little light fingers around my ankles. It demystifies a lot that is going on inside of a sexual encounter.
Yeah, no, I mean, as long as you can, I think any practice that encourages you to communicate what you want, what feels good, how to do it, or like when you're in the moment, adding more pressure, a little less, go move over there, whatever, like giving all that feedback as specific as you possibly can be is super helpful. So yeah, it could be, I'm sure part of it, possibly a lot of it, is the sort of fragile masculinity or toxic masculinity thing that's coming in. Because as men, we're told we need to be men in all the ways, right? Whatever that means to us and whatever society has conditioned us to believe. But especially, we need to be the most man possible in the bedroom, right? Which is probably like, we've been programmed to be like, I know what I'm doing here, babe. I'm going to take care of this moment. I'm going to feel very masculine by doing all the things that I think I'm supposed to do. And I'm pulling from all the resources, from all of the women that I've been with before, all the porn that I've watched before, whatever, which is which doesn't really work, right? Which all the people that you've been with before may not apply at all to the person, and porn is an education, right? So they're pulling from these resources that probably aren't super helpful, and there's toxic masculinity going on. Right. But slowing down and working on communication, making that a very normal part of your relationship. One of the things that might be a good place to start, although some men are a little squeamish or squirmy at first, is right after you do sex and you're done and you're doing some, maybe like laying in bed, cuddling, talking, you can be like, what did you like? And I'm going to tell you what I liked. These are the things I liked the best and I want even more of. Here's some tips in order to make me orgasm in these ways or feel pleasure in that way. So you just sort of do a little thing afterwards. It could just be a few minutes, and then you take that information into the next session. And then from there, maybe you can build and build and build.
Right. And afterwards is a really great time to do that because it's fresh in our mind. We're usually feeling a little bit more relaxed and a little more open to hearing that kind of feedback. But she might have a partner who doesn't do well with hearing feedback. And so some of this might be self-protective in that, instead of giving him the really precise feedback and telling him exactly how to touch her, that in order to protect his ego, she's kind of dancing around it. And this is where I think boundaries come in, because we can't make rules on other people like, this is how you will touch me. That's that. But we can say, hey, I've asked for more foreplay before penetration. And if you continue to go to penetrate me without giving me a proper warm up and making sure that my body's fully ready to receive you, I'm not going to have sex with you anymore. Just full stop. And it might cause the end of the relationship. And if so, I promise you, there's someone out there who will be very eager to take your feedback and give it to you exactly the way that you want.
Yes, exactly. So if your guy is filled with shame and can't talk about these things, or if your guy, after you have sex, he's just wants to eat dinner or go to sleep or watch TV and not do chatty aftercare stuff, then that's good information for you. You don't have to be like, all right, I'm going to go on a journey in order to train him. You can go on that journey, but you have to consent to taking that journey. That's not something that you have to agree to just because all men, it's like, not like you're saying, hashtag not all men. There are some like dudes, a lot of guys out there that want to have these conversations and are really interested in doing all the stuff. I was talking about like a little bit about aftercare. I saw at one point in my life, I don't know, in the last like 5 years, I'm a Dan Savage fan, and Dan Savage was talking about this very specific thing, and I can't remember the name of it. I'm wondering if you ever heard of it and if you know the name of it. So, or if this was like a dream that I had and this is actually not a thing. He was talking about how men, after they orgasm and have sex, there's like a thing, like a something that goes off in their body where they're just like, cool, I don't want to like talk about sex or hang out anymore. I want to go do a thing. I want to like move on with my day or go to sleep. There's just sort of like their capacity in their mind and in their heart and in their genital. They're just like, fuck this, I'm done. And that's why it can be so difficult for them to actually participate in these sorts of questions or aftercare rituals. Have you ever heard that?
Yeah, there is something about the combination of hormones and neurotransmitters that are specific to like the cis male orgasm that trigger a series. And this is why it's not like just a stereotype that men fall asleep after sex. It really is like biologically enabled within us and evolved within us. And I have some theories as to why that might be in terms of like what was beneficial for us having the most mating. And, so one way to get around that is to have a conversation with your partner in advance and say, hey, like, when do you like to talk about sex? Because for some people, it's not. Women too. And like some of us don't want to have conversations immediately after sex. That could be like a very internal time for us. Some people would prefer to have that immediately before. Some people in the car, some people out to dinner, or maybe like having dinner at home. Like we all have kind of various degrees. I need to remind myself of this all the time because I am comfortable talking about sex pretty much any time, all the time. And I remember that not everyone is like me, and that like maybe in the crowded restaurant is not when we're going to like swap butt plug stories, but your mileage will vary. You have to talk to your partner and figure out what's comfortable for you.
Right. Yeah. And as somebody who really loves to talk about all the stuff in relationships, especially sex, there is something that happens to me right after an orgasm where I'm just like, I want to talk, but I'm not feeling inspired to talk here. So it is something that I have to kind of deliberately choose to do because I do actually want that information, but I'm not as excited as I was pre-sex to talk about it. Yeah.
And I really recommend saying like, what was awesome about that? Like kind of the compliment sandwich. What was awesome about that? What would we maybe do differently next time? And then what else was awesome about that?
Yeah.
And if we can keep it precise and sweet and short, then we're more likely to land it. It's more likely to actually work. And we're probably more likely to do it over and over and over again and get better results.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, now we're going to transition to some of the questions that were written in to me. I think some of these we already kind of addressed. Like that first one is, as a straight man, my one-man follower wrote in and said, as a straight man, why do I feel like sex needs to be a performance? We talked about that a little bit. Do you have anything to add to that, do you think?
Yeah, why do you feel that way? Because you've been told over and over and over again that it is, and that it should be. The interesting thing about the pressure that men put on themselves to perform is that it can manifest physically in the body as premature ejaculation, as delayed ejaculation, or as erectile dysfunction. So note that if you're feeling a lot of pressure to perform and you're also dealing with one of those very common sexual challenges, that those two things have a relationship, and that in order to recover your body's ability to quote unquote perform the way that you wanted to, you may actually have to remove the pressure that you feel to perform first.
Yeah. I mean, I have always, and especially when I was younger, troubled with like, oh no, I need to perform. I need to be a rock star here. This needs to be the best sex ever, even the first time we do sex. And that has routinely led to performance anxiety. And then I start getting in my head of like, oh, the first time I'm going to be intimate with somebody, there's a very good chance that I might be suffering from performance anxiety. And there's been a whole, like lots of different ways I've tried to deal with that, from like really being like, okay, I'm just going to listen to my body then. Maybe actually my body doesn't want to have sex. Maybe I don't really want to do this and I'm pressuring myself because I think I'm supposed to. Or maybe I really want to have sex and I'm putting her up on this pedestal, and if I don't like knock it out of the park, then she's not going to want to be with me afterwards. Or maybe if I just tell her that I might have performance anxiety, then it will be like dispelled and I won't feel as anxious. Or maybe that's going to put so much more pressure on her and it's going to be really fucking awkward, right? There's been like
Have you tried all
dozens
of
more
these?
things. I've tried all of these. So performance anxiety isn't as much as an issue as it has been in the past, but one of them that worked really well, where I was with a partner who was just emanating with like sexual positivity. She was just like had this like really like, even before we did any sort of sexy thing, I was like, she's fun and she's open to like hearing what my experience is even before going in. And I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna like let you know I might be having like some performance. It might be hard to get it up. And so let's not like super focus on whether I'm up or not, because there's all the other things, right? And so she's like, okay, here, can we try a thing then? So that like when we start having sex or when we start like making out, we take the clothes off. If you ever do get really hard, I'm going to be like, no, you're not allowed to do that. And then we're going to take a break. And so there was this sort of like almost like punishment, like little play punishment, like you're getting way too hard. We have to stop now. And it created this like tension, the sexual tension to be like, ugh. And then eventually after the 8th time, she was like, all right, we're going to keep you hard and we're going to go for it. Right. But there was like this really cute, loving, compassionate playfulness that worked really well for me that time.
I love that. Wow.
Yeah.
Bless the creative lovers out there and the kinksters.
Yeah,
The other thing is setting really, I mean, it doesn't work for every sexual encounter, right? Because sometimes you're like, we may never have sex again. This is just potentially a one-off.
Yeah.
Ideally, if you were maybe like you've been dating someone and you're getting towards the first time that you're having penetration with them, like set some boundaries and say, okay, tonight we're not having penetration. We're going to do everything up into PIV intercourse. Anything else is on the table, but like we're just taking that completely off the table. There's no pressure to get there because we're not going there. And then the thing that woman and you did that was so brilliant is you said how it was going to go in advance. So when two people, and again, it requires good communication, it requires you have trust and safety and foundation at the foundations of the relationship. But you say like the first time that we have intercourse, this is how I want it to go. So we've laid it out in our head in advance. We've kind of like given ourselves the opportunity to visualize, and we get a chance to say like what it is that we really want. So with my partner, the first time that we had intercourse, I was like, here's how I want it to go. I want you to essentially like line your body up with mine, and I want you to just wait until you can feel my body actually calling you in, pulling you in, and like that neither of us can like that my body is going to make the entire decision as to when and how quickly you enter me. And he was like, okay, I can totally sign off on that. And here's what I need in order to make that happen. And so now we've just made out the whole game plan. And we also, in that circumstance, we also acknowledge that might not be exactly what happens this evening, because both of our bodies could move in a different direction, even though we're very clear on that's what we want. But we have a plan A, and we know that we have the flexibility to pivot. And now our pressure to perform is less because we're not guessing at what the other person wants.
The thing is, though, is that like this question of like, what do you want it to look like? Or even a similar question of just like, what are you into? Just starting there, I feel like that question was never asked until I started having sex with queer women, because that was like never in my hetero culture for either of us to be like, what are you into? That was introduced when I like moved to Portland and was having sex with queer women. So but it feels like so basic and gives you so much information that creates more confidence and sets expectations. You can talk about all the boundaries, because a lot of times when you don't ask what are you into or what do you want this to look like, in my head I'm just like, I'm going to bump up against a boundary probably. Am I doing it right now? I'm like hyper vigilant now on how they're reacting to me. Do they feel comfortable enough to say something? Am I violating some sort of thing, right? And I'm just totally in my head and it's hard to relax.
And the answer to any kind of performance anxiety, and women feel it too, because we feel the pressure to like moan and scream and make sure that it looks good for him and that he feels good about it, which is a version of performance anxiety. The antidote is presence. Like really just being present with what your body wants, what feels good. The more present you are, the more that you can sync with another person and understand where and how to touch their body on more like an intuitive level. And if you have the boundaries in place and you know where the lines are, you can just follow that sort of like, I'm being present, I'm being intuitive. I kind of feel like maybe I should touch them there. We should rotate here, whatever, because I know that I'm not going to cross any of those lines. And now I have freedom to play within them, but only if you're being present.
Yes. Which, I mean, that is the easy answer and difficult to do sometimes.
Simple,
right?
Not easy.
Yeah. To like actually
Totally.
drop into your body, be embodied and feel the pleasure and make decisions from that place makes a lot of sense and takes a lot of practice.
Yeah.
And sometimes, depending on the setting and the person and yada, yada, it's going to be harder or easier to do.
Yeah. And it's easier if you practice solo too, because you're in complete control over that. Right. So if in your solo practice, if so many of us masturbate like it is a chore. Like I have all the tools that I need, I have like my broom and my mop and all of that. We're just going to get this thing done as quickly as possible. And people of all genders do this. Like how many of us are really good at taking ourselves at like a pleasure journey? And even I am crap at this. I once went through a training where I was supposed to spend 30 minutes a day self-pleasuring. And I was like, I have a job. Like what? Even though that is my job. It was too indulgent for me. But if you dedicate some time in solo pleasure practice to locating pleasure instead of getting yourself to orgasm and just being like, let me just see what feels good a little bit. And then let me try to turn that up by 1% and 1% and 1% and 1% and allow it to be less just genital and orgasm focused. You're going to be a little bit more in your body and able, because once we can sort of find and jump on that line of pleasure for ourselves, we have a lot more groundedness in our ability to sort of share that with another person. But if we're kind of trying to figure it out for ourselves live with them and also their pleasure and also who's touching what and where, like that is a lot for the human brain to try to keep track of.
It is a lot. A question that's sort of connected to this sort of thing is how do erections work, and do they represent like the different levels of desire that a penis having person can have?
I love this question because I love erections as like a concept, as something that happens in the human body. Erections are cool. Okay. They require our cardiovascular system, our endocrine system, and our neurological system to all be working together in a symphony. It is like past a certain point, once we're past puberty and like stop getting erections when the car drives over bumps. Like erections are like nothing short of sort of like a miracle of all of the symphonies of the body happening all together at the same time. But in short, they happen because the body or the mind gets something sexually relevant. So that could be like a touch of a hand, but it also could be, like seeing down somebody's shirt or having a flashback of a particularly sexy thought, or it could be like, look, what happened for me is I was at a factory tour one time and I saw a pallet being wrapped in saran wrap. And I was suddenly like, oh, I'm into that. I'm sexually aroused. So it doesn't have to be like what we consider to be sexually relevant. Although certainly if you're in you know what I'm talking about. If you're into that, if you know. So what happens is we get something, body's like, oh, that is sexually relevant. Mind is like, oh, that is sexually relevant. It sends a signal to the body to release nitric oxide. Nitric oxide allows the blood vessels in the penis to expand and fill with blood. The veins in the penis that release blood get shut down a bit, so that blood gets trapped in there. And then eventually, because it's not good for the penis to just like, or any part of the body to have blood stuck in it for any length, any length of time. That's why the Viagra commercials were like, if you get an erection that lasts more than 4 hours, call a doctor. It's because the blood that's getting trapped in there isn't being recycled throughout the rest of the cardiovascular system. So it's not getting a bunch of like new oxygen to it. And so something called phosphodiesterase 5 comes in, it releases the blood out of the blood vessels. That's how Viagra works. It's a PDE, phosphodiesterase 5 inhibitor. It prevents the breakdown of the chemical that causes blood to stay in the erection. So let me put that a little bit more specifically. I think this is probably part of the more relevant piece of this question.
Okay.
Viagra prevents erections from going away. Cialis, this whole category of drugs. It does not cause them to happen. You have to be able to get an erection, and that's nitric oxide, that's testosterone, that's adrenaline, that's serotonin, that's got a lot going for it, right? But if you cannot initially get that erection, you cannot keep it. And that's why so many people, especially like younger people now, men, the number of men that I know that are like in their 20s or 30s, but have a prescription for Viagra or Cialis is outrageous. Like it's so common. And the thing is that if it doesn't matter, it will not support you in getting an erection. Like you can't, it doesn't do that for you. So that all aside, what does it have to do with attraction? It's not as much as you might think. Because between the neurological and endocrine and cardiovascular system, attraction plays a role, but it doesn't play like the only role. There is so much more going on. I made a course once on erectile dysfunction just based off of the coaching that I had done, and I came up with 45 different causes that I had seen in my clients of erectile dysfunction, including physiological, for sure. You know, you should go get checked by a healthcare professional if you're not getting erect, especially if you don't get erect when you're masturbating or when you wake up in the morning. Those are the two greatest indications that there's something physical going on. But after that, all the other causes are mental, emotional, relational, cultural, societal, spiritual. Like there's a lot of reasons. The cool thing about penises, and this is maybe the best thing about erections, is that they can't lie. Like dicks don't lie in general. If you are in a relationship where there's like a ton of resentment, your male partner feels a bunch of resentment towards you, his dick typically will not be able to say what his mouth will say. No, honey, everything is fine. His dick will be like, absolutely not going in. You won't get me hard. I'm not going in. You know, they do tell the truth, but it doesn't have that much to do with attraction. I think you can be attracted to someone and resent them.
Right.
You know?
And that's the thing to tease out here that's really important for this question. And there's also just like, as a penis having individual, there's been so many times in my life where I'm just like, I hate how much meaning is being projected onto my penis. And the fact that like I need to be hard so that you feel attracted makes my penis so soft, babe. So like all of the pressure, all of the meaning is getting like funneled into my dick. And when there's that much going on, pressure, anxiety, meaning, yada, yada, and how like either we're going to have sex or we're not going to have sex based on whether or not I get it up is just like, fuck this. I can't stand having the thing, you know? So it's really important that everybody is hearing what you're saying, that yes, it can partly be connected to how attracted they are, but there's a million other things that are going on that are going to like affect the hardness or softness of your penis.
And again, trust your partner. If he's like, I am attracted to you, and he's a trustworthy individual and you have a safe relationship that you feel comfortable inside of, then trust that he's attracted to you, and what is going on is different than attraction.
Yeah, there you go. Okay, we have maybe like 5 or 10 minutes left and a lot of questions to get through, and we're not going to be able to get through all of them.
Do you want to speed round them?
If you want to do a speed round, although I feel like I'm sensing a pattern here to some of these answers, so we don't. Let's be aware of that. So next question. What's the best way to tell a guy that I need more foreplay and stimulation without making him feel bad or hurting his confidence? The thing here, which is like present in maybe all of our answers, is how do we sort of like protect the male ego? You know what I mean? And so listen to what we've said. I think that a lot of communication is really important, and having the guy understand how his confidence can be affected and why that is, and the messages that he's gotten from the patriarchy and all that is important to keep in mind. But usually I feel like just direct communication is the best way. I
think the answer is in the question. Say, hey, babe, I really need to share some things with you, but I'm afraid of the effect that it might have on you. I'm afraid you might take it the wrong way, but it's really important for me.
Yeah, there you go. Next question is, why do men get so angry when they're rejected? What do you think about that one?
Anger is the most socially acceptable emotion for men. And so all emotions that if he doesn't have access to, if he's not like capable of really acknowledging for himself, and like it takes a lot it does. The normative male alexithymia is real. Like it takes a lot to be like, this is what I'm feeling inside. This is a feeling of sadness. I feel sad because I feel generally unwanted and I have always felt unwanted by women, starting with my mom. Like it takes a lot of work to be able to say. So instead, they're just like, "Oh, this feels bad," and anger is the thing that I have the most familiarity with, and I won't, it's most expected from me. So anger, it is.
Yes,
It is so unfortunate because it is one of the greatest obstacles to people that are attracted to men have in dating and having sex with them.
Yes, I 100% agree with everything you said. Usually there's sadness. Sadness is the primary emotion, or some sort of vulnerability, but the secondary reaction, anger, is a lot more sort of easier or acceptable to feel. There's also like why is he getting angry? There's a part of him that thinks that you owe him sex, that he owns your body. There might be like some stuff in the background like that going on, like the patriarchy stuff.
It always comes down to the patriarchy a little bit.
Yeah. So there's also like for the guys listening, and for everyone, for all the genders listening, like when a man can like take rejection sexually in a really smooth, understanding, compassionate way, huge green flag, which is like, it's such a bare minimum sort of thing. Like you would think that we'd all be able to do this, but it's a green flag. It's something that you all should work on. I know that like inside of me, when I get sexually rejected, there is like an angry part, and I can control that part, or I can be compassionate with that part, or I can like go underneath and feel the sadness of that part. I can console myself, or I can like talk to my partner about that part, right? There's lots of different ways to manage the anger that might come up. And even if there's like anger coming up inside of me, it doesn't mean that I'm horrible. It just means that I have an opportunity to address it in a different way.
Right. I love that. And I think the opposite side of that for myself is like when I get rejected from sex, I feel sad. I go straight for sad, like a lot of people that were raised and conditioned female. And I go into the internal place of like, what did I do wrong? And why am I not desirable? And all this, right? And like all of it is about catching ourselves in the midst of that, holding our emotions, talking ourselves down, recognizing that like the story that we're telling ourselves isn't necessarily the factual story of what's going on here, and addressing it with a partner when it's appropriate.
Yes. Next question. What to do if my boyfriend has finished and I haven't yet? It usually kills the mood. Yeah. How do you feel about
I hate the word finished in sex because like it suggests that the male ejaculation is the end, that is the finish of sex, right? And that like he couldn't possibly go down on you or use a toy on you or watch you use a toy on yourself or depending on how his refractory period is, wait 20 minutes and go again. Like it's not finished. I mean, we did talk about earlier about all the chemicals that he's swimming in, so he might not be able to go again. But I say start by moving the word finished just out of your sexual vocabulary. I would, I think a sexual encounter is complete when we agree that it's complete and not based on anything that happens inside of it. That said, resources on premature ejaculation, letting him know how important it is to you, how much more time you and your body need. If he can only last 5 to 7 minutes in intercourse, then make sure that you're getting 20 minutes of foreplay. And again, if he's not willing to do those things with you, don't have sex with him. I'm sorry. I feel like this is like the dump him response, but like you just, if he's open to it and he's trainable and like he's willing to like do better, amazing. And if he's not, then quit like sacrificing your sexual satisfaction and erotic well-being on behalf of someone who's not willing to meet you halfway.
Yeah, agree. Or at the very least, consider that information and put it into your data of whether or not this is a good, maybe there's like a bunch of other things that are really good, but he's not able to grow or change in this area. Is that okay with you? Is that something you can accept for the rest of your life? Maybe, probably not. Probably not.
Not for me. I'm answering on my own behalf. And like sex is very important to me.
Next question.
Premature ejaculation is very, it can be worked on. It's of all of the things that men deal with, like early ejaculation is probably like the simplest to overcome and the most straightforward. So good news for you there.
The next question also has your favorite word. Why can he only finish on his back with me on top? Is this because of masturbation?
Could be. It could be related to masturbation. You know, the way we
Maybe.
practice is the way we play. So the way that we masturbate is going to indicate for many of us how we are most likely to reach orgasm with a partner. And some of that has to do with intensity that we masturbate with, like the body position that we masturbate, where we masturbate, how frequently we masturbate, do we use porn? Like it is going to impact because your body is being conditioned, and then you're taking what you've been doing in practice and you're taking it to the playing field and playing with another person.
Mm-hmm.
The good news is that the body and sexuality are like highly malleable and plastic and shiftable and trainable. So it does not have to necessarily be that way. It could be that that's the easiest way for him to reach orgasm. Maybe you have sex in that position until he's very close to reaching orgasm, and then you change positions, and that trains his body that he can reach orgasm in other positions. Maybe he starts standing up while he masturbates. Maybe he invests in a male masturbation sleeve, and he gets one with a hard shell so he can stick it on a bookshelf and like stand and pump away at the bookshelf. Like there's a lot that can be shifted, and we can start to train the body that different ways of pleasuring and getting to the quote unquote finish is possible.
Mm-hmm. Is this, tell me what you think of this and tell me if I'm wrong. Or like if not if I'm wrong, but if I should like think about this in a different way. Does this feel like a gendered thing in that like if I'm having sex with a woman and the woman is like, this is the very specific way that I'm only going to orgasm, I'm just like, I'm on board, babe. Whatever you need to do, I'm going to do this. But there's this sort of opposite thing where like, if the man is like, this is the only way that I can orgasm, then all of a sudden it's like, well, why can't you orgasm in all the other ways? Like, shouldn't it be so easy to orgasm with your dick? What the fuck is going on? Like, maybe this is just the way he's only wanting to or able to orgasm. Cool. Who gives a shit? Hop on top. But is that, am I problematic for?
No, I think you're pointing to something that's very common in our overall expectations that men should just be able to get up, get off, and like it should just work all the time in the way that we expect it to, and that's that. And then vulvas and vaginas and clitorises are allowed to be more complicated. I think for all people, my greatest desire as a sex coach is that you have total like freedom to create all the different kinds of experiences that you want to have with your body. And so if he cares about this and he's like, yeah, I really wish that I could orgasm in missionary or doggy style or cowgirl, I see as in cowgirl, reverse cowgirl, whatever, wheelbarrow, lotus, Amazon, all of the positions, then like I want him to be able to experience that. Yeah. I also am, you know, and the same is true for people with clits and vulvas. Like but there is something really distinct about women's bodies or vulva havers is that because different positions are going to stimulate different parts of our overall anatomy, they are going to work a lot more. Like one position is going to feel a lot more different on a vulva than it is on a penis. On a penis, doggy style might hit the bottom of the head of the penis. It makes it a little bit easier for people who have more sensitivity there to reach orgasm. Maybe that's what's happening when she's riding him. Missionary is going to hit a different part of the penis. That's all very true. But different positions are going to grind more on the clitoris. Different positions are going to hit the perineal sponge. Different positions are going to hit the G-spot. Different positions are going to hit the anterior and posterior fornix. So doggy style versus, I hate that term, like animal style versus missionary on a vulva feels incredibly different, hits completely different nerve endings, can cause different kinds of orgasms. They may not feel as different on a penis, and that might be where some of our cultural or gendered differences and how we think about this come from.
Yeah, oh, that makes a lot of sense. Thank you for that. Caitlin, we have run out of time. I know.
I'm so sad.
Yeah, there's lots of questions we could have gotten to. But before we leave, can you let people know where they can find you if they want to learn more about you?
Yes, please. You can find me on YouTube by searching Caitlin V, spelled pretty much in any combination. But if you want to spell it right, it's Caitlin, V as in victorious. And you can find me on my website, Caitlin V Neal, Neal. I have all the multiple names with many different ways to spell them. And you can learn more about me there as well.
Nice. And we'll link to all of this stuff in our show notes. You have so much fucking information. You're a wealth of information. You're so good at talking and being on a podcast. I love that we got to do this together, and I had a lot of fun. Thank you.
Thank you so much for having me.
Of course. All right. I'll talk to you later.